Chapter 11, Interview Strategically. This is an important chapter. This is probably going to be the last chapter that I'm going to do an actual speaking lecture. The last chapter is actually chapter 12. What we'll be going over today is understanding the art of interviewing. I like how they say that. It makes it sound like it's an art, and it is. You actually master it. You know, I trust me, I've had a lot in my day, so I'm not mastered it yet, but I'm pretty good. Interview guidelines, so what we have to look out for. Essential components of interview process and guidelines. What we actually want to know, the strategic interviewing, and then the follow-up. What's going to happen after the interview? So understanding the art of interviewing. So, of course, they're going to say you need to prepare. You want to know that before you go into the interview, you need to know before the information before. So research it. So, of course, you're going to do mock interviews. There is this one place, company online. It's called Big Interview. It's pretty cool. It gives out interview tips, and you can actually pretend you're doing an interview with somebody. Some classes that I know some instructors, they actually do the interview and have the students do a video and it sends back to them, but I don't necessarily have that assignment for you guys. I pretty much go over this because I feel like a lot of information you guys have already gotten. I just want to go into the interview. So you already know you have to prepare for it. So what does it mean to prepare? Ask people who have applied for that position. Don't talk like that, like how I just said, one of the things that I had a person who worked at a career center, and they mentioned to me, I noticed you say so a lot, and you want to watch out for that. So going over what you want to talk about. Go over the job description. You are actually going for that actual particular job, so you want to make sure that you fit it in any way you can, but doesn't necessarily mean that you have to fit it exactly. So they say that men kind of graze over the job description, and if they fit it, I could take that job. Women have more of a tendency to see if I fit every single job description on here. And if they find one flaw that they don't meet, they're like, I can't get that job. So I would say graze over, go over the job description. If you fit most of it, should be okay. In need more clarity about the job, make sure you ask in the interview. So those are always, and we'll talk about that, about questions, and when you want to clarify, and you want, what does an average day look like in this job, or what would you say that you are looking for? And if I were a year from now, if I were to get the position and evaluated, what are you looking for in my position? Interviews become easier with practice. It depends on the position, correct? If you're interviewing for a position that you already know you're pretty valuable for that company, then yes, of course it does. But if this is something new to you and you haven't really practiced, then you're going to struggle. So you do want to make sure you're going in there pretty solid. Interview and rejection are opportunity to learn. So, one year I went on an interview. I went on 7 interviews in 1 year, and that's not really. Maybe people are thinking that's a lot. Well, I already had a job, I already had a position, but I went on 7 of them, and then for my last interview that I actually got another time, I did horrible on it, and that was probably my 8th one, and I was just like, how did I do so good in the beginning ones, and by the 8th one, I did horrible? So sometimes we get this sense of, your self-esteem goes down. You're feeling like, maybe this is not the job for me or whatnot. So I just don't want that to happen to you. If you get rejected, take it as an opportunity. And I can tell you, as experience, it's hard to take in that when someone tells you, it's an opportunity to learn from. And I'm like, I don't want to learn from it. I want the job. So just be mindful that it is, so you can kind of tackle what I did and didn't say. And they can tell you for 1,000 times over, oh, we looked over your resume. What can you tell us about yourself? Go over that resume one more time. And just rememberize, because you're actually selling yourself to them. So they are supposed to go in there sometimes as though they didn't go over the resume. So go over it again. Get a good foundation on what your strengths are and weaknesses are. That's always something good to go over prior to the interview. And of course, remember those power poses that Amy Cuddy had let us know about. I definitely used those when I got my position as a counselor. My 2 positions as a counselor. I went into the restroom right before I had my interview. I opened up my hands. I stood in that Wonder Woman position, and I just took it all in. And I was telling myself, I can do this. I got this. I have the education for this. I have the personality for this. I fit this position well. The experience for this. So you have to psych yourself out. 7 sample questions. So of course the biggest question, and they put it for number 1, is tell me about yourself. Well, they don't want to know, the other day I went to the market, or this quarantine stuff is, getting to me, or you don't want to dwell into that stuff. They want to know stuff about you that relates to the position. So, for example, I'm applying for a position for a preschool teacher. So tell me about yourself. Well, I work well with children. I have a good positive attitude. I'm consistent in my work, very organized. You want to tell them about yourself, but it actually really relates to the job you're actually going for. Why do you want this job? And don't ever say because of money. I mean, of course, that is a big one, right? I mean, we live and thrive, and we have to live a living. So of course we do want income, but that's one thing you don't want to tell them that it's for. Why did you apply here? Why did you think you're qualified for this job? So these are just some general questions that they possibly would ask you. Write them down. Write your answers down. Practice it. Just go over it again. Why should I, or we, if you're in a panel, hire you? You want to give them, going back to the job description, if the job description says you're going to be entering data and you have to meet the 65 words per minute, then you want to let them know, well, I am a good candidate. I type 65 words per minute. I am very enthused. I would love to work in a company I can grow with. They like to hear that you're going to be there in the long run. So you want to say something that you can grow within the company, or you want to be part of the team, or you want to belong with them. If it's second level, so there's first level and second level interviews sometimes. That's what I was in, is the first level and second level. So sometimes in the first level, they talk about, like, do you meet the qualifications for the job? And then the second level is, do you fit our company or our work area? Do you fit? Are you a good fit? So that's what they would do for first and second level interviews. Tell us about yourself. I already went over that. Why did you leave your last job? You don't want to say because the people I worked with, or my boss was a blank. Never say that. It was time. If it was something that it was not a really good leaving, then you do want to let them know that it was time I grew from that, or you wanted to let them know that your time over there was done and completed, but yet I left it in a good, sense. What a lot of times happens to me for why I left my previous jobs is I went back to school for one. I had children for another time. I wanted to be more involved in my family's life. So sometimes some of that comes into play. I can't speak for everyone, but just be mindful when you answer these questions. You want to be wholeheartedly mindful on what they are going to think of my response. And the biggest one, you do want to always take advantage of is, do you have any questions for us or me? And you do. I remember my first job at Edwards Cinema in West Covina, and the manager asked me, do you have any questions for me? And I asked him, because he actually, during the interview, I got hired. And he said, so do you have any questions? I said, why did you hire me? And I was 16 at the time, and I didn't even know if that's a question I should ask or I shouldn't ask. But to me, I felt at the time, I want to know what I did so that I can continue doing that. And he said, your positivity, your smile, and your answers. And so to me, I was really positive to know that feedback. And if you're not hired yet, and they'll let you know, one of the questions are really good that you want to ask for is a typical day, or how many positions are you putting out there for, or you want to ask a general question, but it kind of gears towards you. Here's some guidelines, okay? Just like your resume has guidelines, interview very, very good guidelines. This is your first impression that they're going to have on you. And they say that with every first impression, it's so stuck in someone's brain, that's the one they're going to go off of. And it takes 12 other times for that person to meet you to change it. So if you have a bad impression on somebody, then they have to technically either hear about you or see you 12 other times for them to think, you know what, they are a good person. So it's harder to change someone's mind once the first impression already hit. So this is your first impression. You want to dress for success. You want to dress professional. I'm not going to say I was the richest person and I had the nicest clothes. I went to thrift shops. I got my dress clothes at thrift shops. I have no shame in that. Growing up not having that much money, but you still want to look as though you have it. I will tell you, thrift stores have a lot of professional wear. Sometimes the school you go to have professional dress donations. So I know that 2 of the schools I work for, they have that. They have a drive for professional wear. You want to make sure your clothes are clean and no wrinkles. So I really was trying to look for this YouTube video, and it was this guy going on an interview, and he was sitting there for an interview, and the stain was just yelling out, and he's like, rah, 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 and just yelling, and the whole time the guy interviewing him keeps looking at the stain. Oh gosh, I was really trying to find it. If I find it, I'll definitely post it for you guys. It's just a funny commercial, but it made me think of my interviews for my students. You don't want to really stand out, so not like a huge bright red or a bright pink. Neutral colors are very good. Solid, black, navy blue, beige. These are all good colors that you want to keep it. You don't have to wear black and black and black, because it's you're not, you want to keep it, subtle. And that's what they look at. Tans, gray, and grays. I totally forgot about grays are good. If you're wearing heels, they do prefer you to have closed toe, but I will tell you that I think maybe one of my interviews I had open toe, but the rest were all closed toe shoes. I didn't wear very high stilettos. I made sure that I could walk to the place and walk back and not fall on my face. For men, you want to wear a tie and a suit. So that's what I was talking about. If you don't have any at home, maybe lending from a colleague, a friend, or the thrift store is a good place to go. Makeup for women. You don't want to go in there. I love makeup, and I love putting on my makeup and looking better than when I don't have it. I do put a little eyelashes on, and I don't put eyeliner if I have my eyelashes on, but you don't want to make it so dramatic, like pinks and purples for your eyeshadow. You want to keep it, neutral, if you do wear eyeshadow, you have to wear it, and then, browns and tans and something lighter. You don't have to be so dramatic. I have seen a couple people women wear dark red, but they say to keep it kind of neutral for the looks as well. Okay, so that was dress-wise. That was just some things that if you want to know more for dressing for success, of course, YouTube offers so many. I was just scrolling through it, and Pinterest, if you're not on Pinterest, you could just go onto Pinterest and put dress for an interview, and just all kinds of stuff comes up. Another practical preparation, you want a firm handshake. You don't want to crush someone's hand, but a firm handshake shows confidence. I'm confident that I can take this position, and I'm going to take it. No, but just be confident in handshaking. Keep eye contact. It's somebody who is an introvert, and you found out your personality, and you're looking within. It's hard sometimes to look straight into the eye and talk about, me, but you have to look them in the eye and let them know that I am the one for this position. I want this position. Well, you're not going to say that, but in your mind you're thinking, so you have to look at them and let them know, and be very direct, like very straight to the point when you're looking at them. Reply to the question being asked. I will tell you that this one will get you every time. I was on an interview panel, so I was actually on the other side, not the interviewee. I was the interviewer. And one thing that I would always catch, and I would mark them off for, is that they didn't answer the question I asked. And it's difficult because, one, they're nervous. Secondly, did they answer it's a lot of emotions are going on in the interview. But you want to make sure, did I answer the question that they were asking for? Another thing that the person had told me from the Career Center is they told me about, I don't like silence. And she said, it's okay to be quiet for a moment to gather your thoughts. Don't feel that you have to fill the space with talking. So when you're gathering your thoughts, once they ask the question, if you could just maybe take a second, gather your thoughts, and then speak. And that does remarkable, because I was just ready, like I'm going to fire on and go for the question and answer it, but I didn't answer the question. So you have to just make sure you do answer that question. Refer back to your past experiences. Of course, you're going to refer back to your past experiences. If you don't have any relevant experience, of course, I always remember I told you about the power pose before the interview. Smile, speak up, and relax. It's easy to get distracted and be stiff. You want to smile, speak loudly, not loudly like you're yelling, but you want to be affirmative. Relax. So lift your shoulders up, push them back, and sit up straight. And you want to, and then bring it in, and then begin the interview. And it's just knowing, like, okay, I'm going to sit here, or I'm going to stand here, I'm going to be on this interview, and let's do this. That's just relax. It's okay. I mean, everything will come. Talk with pride and feel confident. And that could be difficult for a lot of us, because let's say my confidence was at the end of that last interview that I told you with. My confidence was shot. It was just shot. It was not there anymore. I didn't even say half of the stuff. And even when the person had mentioned to me later on, was like, you do so much. You didn't mention this, or this that you do. And that's what they were looking for. And I said, I didn't think about it. I totally forgot. I was just not even confident anymore, So you don't want that you don't let what happened to me happen to you. Remember, you're selling yourself. You're your number one seller. No one's going to sell you like you are going to sell you. Other type of interviews. So before, back in the day, it's just 10 o'clock, be here, the interview starts, somebody will call you in, and that's when it starts. It's no longer like that with our virtual world, especially now that everybody is working remotely, online. Video interview is what we're going for. I did a video interview via Zoom for a graduate program I was interested in. That was another interview that I didn't get. I didn't get into the graduate program, but I did it via Zoom. So I had four people were in there, and it was via Zoom. So I made sure that of course, the top area was all professional. My makeup was professional. My hair was straight or down or just halfway up, or I don't remember. And just kept it very as though they were in the room with me. And their Skype as well. video conferencing, that's exactly what the Zoom and Skype would be referencing to. The telephone interview, I don't know if any of you have done it before, but I mean, I also have experience in telephone interviews. They can't see you, of course, but I would say when you're doing those interviews like via Skype or Zoom or telephone, where you're actually home, let everyone in the house know, hey, just be on I mean, as a mother of 3 kids, I have to tell everybody settle down, don't go in the room. I'm actually on a video conference or I'm on a phone call, because it's going to be a distraction if you have your 1-year-old or 2-year-old or 7-year-old coming in and it's like, Mom, I'm hungry and I'm on a conference call, I'm in a meeting. So you want to just beforehand either put a sign up, let them know this is what's going to happen at 10 o'clock to 11. Just be mindful to the people in your home too, because you don't want to be one of those that guy on CNN, or he had that interview and he was in an interview and the kid came running in the back and the mom's pulling him in the back, and literally it does happen like that. So a panel interview, it could be like 4 or 5 people. I was on a panel one time with 8 to 10 people, and they all had their own questions. There was like 18 questions that they had. It was just crazy. Didn't get that position as well. But I mean, they were all good questions. They all asked their own questions as they kept going around. Just when you're speaking to that person, I always like to say that a good question, Bill. Yes, I'd like to describe that in a little bit more into depth, or I like to. And sometimes the panel interview, they might or might not have a follow-up question. So something to think about. Group interview, I have never been a part of this, but I have had my colleagues had told me about it, where it was like 4 or 5 of them in a group, and they were interviewed by someone, and it was all of them in one room, and 4 or 5 of them were going for one position, and then the interviewer was asking all of them, and then they would give their response. So I've never been in one of those, but that would be kind of cool. Audition interview, I like these. I've never been on one of these as well, but I go to Vegas frequently, and one of the things I found out is that, because I like the Cosmopolitan, is that they do audition interviews there. So meaning the server that comes and asks you if you would like something to drink actually had to audition for that position. So they actually would have a mock, interview where the person is going to come up and ask you and talk to you, and audition interview. So that was one of the audition interviews. Another, of course, is going to be something else, like if it's a dance or, anything like that. Guidelines for strategic interviewing. You want to behavioral situational interview. You want listening skills, your writing skills, organization, teamwork skills. You want to go over these skills. I know in some of the interviews I was in, I actually had to, they gave me questions. I was writing they said you have 10 minutes to answer these questions. And I worked like crazy just to go over those questions. So just to give myself keywords so that when I come back to look at what am I going to talk about? So you want to make sure that everything's kind of organized in that area. Body language, interviewing format, strategic digital interviewing. So this is just going over everything that we kind of went over. Be articulate, practice, and dress professionally. So that's just going over everything we had already covered one more time before we round it all up and end your interview, right? So now you're done. Whew, you're completed. You finished the interview. Now what happens? Well, what did you learn from the interview? I had learned from a colleague of mine is that she left the interview. She right away started recording and herself talking. And what she was recording is she was saying all the questions that the interviewers were asking. And then she was kind of saying what her response was. And so she does not forget what she was saying, what was said in the interview. So that was kind of something. Because if she didn't get that interview, at least she knows for next time what the interview will look like. factors influencing hiring. If you're offered the job, so you want to know, okay, what if I do get this job? Am I ready to take this job? If it's an out-of-state job, am I ready to leave and move the state? Or if it's another town or city, you have to really think, you know what, there's a possibility I'm going to get this job, and then what? So you want to think about that. Negotiating salary and benefits always comes after they've offered you the position. One thing that studies show all the time, and even now they always say women don't get paid as much as men do. But there is another thing that women don't do that men do. And men have, they ask for their salary, and they ask for more. Women don't feel as entitled to sometimes. This is sometimes. Mind you, I'm hardcore feminist at times, but you want to ask for it. So I remember talking to a colleague of mine and saying, like, I'm just going to get paid what they pay me. It's like, well, this is how he was telling me, this is how I'm going to come across it, is that I was hoping for, and then say an amount in there. And you want to go higher because then they're going to go lower, and that's the negotiation part of it. So just to be mindful is that ask for it. If you feel like you deserve it, ask for it, because somebody probably did, or, maybe just let them know, I'm worth this, Your first month on the job, you got to think about things you're going to learn, because this is still, even though you have the experience and knowledge, you're still going to learn that company and what you need to know for that position. And last but not least, if you did not get the job, then what? So we continue on our job search. We go back to it again. Go on. How am I looking for positions, and LinkedIn and all of that? How am I networking and putting in your resume again, adjusting your resume for another job, and continuing to do that. And the unfortunate part is that there's so many now that have currently lost their jobs. So this is very good information to know for the time being. And that will conclude our